Raja Petra. This is going to be very deeply personal. So you're here already. You said it's a fair playing ground. Very true. But back home, they still can't get you, and they targeted your son a couple of months back. All of us here are really sorry to hear about it. We just want to know to what extent are measures being made back home to make sure that he's safe, to make sure that we still get that traction to get proper justice back home for him.
Well, that's a hard question to answer. We never know how safe is safe. But a lot of my friends and even family worry about my safety and even safety of my son. But I always, I would say I'm ultra religious, but I've always held to the belief that your fate has already been decided long before you were born. And if it's been decided that something is going to happen tomorrow, it will happen tomorrow. I cannot avoid my destiny or my appointment with fate. And I just plod on and leave the rest to divine intervention. If not, I wouldn't do half the things I'm doing now if I have to keep looking behind and worrying about who's lurking in the shadows and stuff like that.
Do you think that Barisan National will succeed in getting two-thirds majority in Parliament in the next 3 months?
Could you just speak that again a bit louder?
Yeah. Do you think that Barisan National will succeed in getting a two-thirds majority, since they're putting quite a bit of effort in Parliament in the next 3 months?
I doubt it. I think after what happened last weekend in Cebu, I think even those who may be contemplating leaving for the greener pastures of Barisan National are thinking twice. The last thing they want to do is to leave the opposition, join Barisan National. A few months later, Najib calls a snap election and the government falls. So I think they'll take their chances with the opposition for the time being.
Okay. I think we've time for just 2 more questions. Gentleman at the back there. Again, you speak nice and loud, please.
Yeah, sure.
From the back.
I'm sure there is a lot of people who has now settled outside Malaysia, bearing in mind the discrimination caused by the Malaysian government. How do you think the people outside Malaysia can play a role to make any changes that can ever happen? At the moment, as far as I know, very limited effort has been put by people living outside Malaysia to make any change. Do you think that we can play some efficient role to make any changes?
In 2008, many people who had not voted in their life decided for the first time to vote. Some had not even registered to vote and decided for 2008 that they will now register to vote and will vote as well. We're not talking about first-time voters or young voters. We're talking about people in their 40s and 50s and even coming to 60 like me, who finally woke up in 2008 and decided, let's vote, let's register as a voter. We had people from Australia, people from the US, all over the world. They flew back to Malaysia. They flew back to Malaysia just to vote. They arrived in Malaysia one day before polling, they voted, and the next day flew back. So they were in Malaysia only for 2 nights, just to come back to vote. Okay, not everyone could probably afford 3,000 ringgit or whatever to fly back for 2 days just to vote and come back. But that was the effort made by those Malaysians living overseas who felt that their one vote is very important. Now, we got what, 500,000 people, maybe, Malaysians, who live outside Malaysia. But Malaysians living outside Malaysia can't vote. Why? Now, if you go to KL during the Indonesian elections, you see Jalan, Jalan Tun Razak, near where the Indonesian embassy is. Crowds of Indonesians, you know, Indonesian maids and Indonesian laborers. They go to the embassy to vote. So even Indonesians are allowed to vote in Kuala Lumpur, but Malaysians cannot vote outside Malaysia. Now this is something where Malaysians living overseas have to demand from the government. Excuse me. You have to demand the right to vote. The right to vote is guaranteed in the Constitution. It is your constitutional right to vote. But you're being denied that right to vote because you happen to be physically outside the country. That needs to be addressed, but it has to come from Malaysians living overseas, Malaysians living outside Malaysia. And, excuse me. And if there's enough pressure from these 500,000 Malaysians, you know, 500,000 or so Malaysians living outside Malaysia, that we are being denied our right to vote. And we can't afford 3,000 ringgit per head just to fly back for 2 days just to vote. We want to vote here, in the country where we happen to be living or working or studying. That may give us another, 500,000 new voters. And as I said, 300,000 was all you needed to form the new government, so 500,000 is a lot of votes. Again, then you're talking about postal votes and manipulation that's being done. Okay, those are the checks and balances. If, for instance, I doubt even if, for instance, if they allow Malaysians living in the UK to vote, they're going to have polling stations in every city in UK, maybe only in the Malaysian High Commission in London. One polling center. And political parties can send representatives. Not necessarily they are from Malaysia, they could be people also living in UK. They represent the political parties as observers during the voting. And maybe voting is for 4 hours, from maybe 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock or whatever the case may be. So during that window of 4 hours, you can come to London at the Malaysian High Commission and vote. And once the 4 hours is up, voting ends, and the ballot box is opened, the number of votes are counted, okay, and the tallying is done in the presence of observers from all political parties, right? Now these votes, not the votes, but the results can then be sent back to Malaysia. But where will these votes go to? For instance, you're not voting in Subang Jaya or Shah Alam, you know. So they'll have to work out a system where it will be decided that these votes are going to go to whichever seat, or whether they're just going to be added to the parliament, the total parliament seats which is won by political parties and things like that. So the mechanics has to be worked out, how the system is going to be implemented. Maybe we study how it's done, along the Indonesian model, for instance. And but the right to vote has been taken away from Malaysians who are outside Malaysia, which means it's a violation of the Constitution, which guarantees you your right to vote. I think that's the least which Malaysians living outside Malaysia can do to restore democracy, at least as far as the elections is concerned.